nuestra semana o qué hemos hecho de nuevo, cómo va el trabajo. Luego hacemos las actividades del libro. Vemos si podemos hacer un juguetito nuevo para Máximo. A veces ella lo evalúa, cómo está su sentido motriz, qué ha aprendido de nuevo, nuevas palabras, y jugamos un ratito y conversamos.
A mí personalmente también me ayudó mucho a obtener mi licencia a conducir, que era un objetivo que teníamos en cuanto a la familia,
sí,
para poder estar tranquilos, así que encuentro que ha sido fundamental el apoyo.
El objetivo del programa es que las familias estén bien, y que las familias estén bien significa niños felices, niños sanos, y eso en un futuro es adultos sanos y un mundo mejor. Entonces está bueno.
She has made me feel like I'm important and I can go at my own pace, and that's all you need sometimes when you're feeling like you got nobody.
It was helpful to have somebody there kind of holding my hand and guiding me and letting me know this is kind of the normal. It felt like I was becoming a new mom, so it was very interesting and helpful, very, very helpful.
You know, there was that self-conscious part of me, like, will I be accepted even though I'm not perfect?
What I like the most is that she really listens.
The support that she gives me is special because she does it with love, and it's just natural, you know. That's all I could say. It just feels like somebody that I've known since I was little.
You know, I said to Jeanette, Jeanette, you're supposed to be with me for 5 years. Jeanette said, yeah, I know, I'm going to be with you guys for 5 years. That's when I said, well, I guess I can trust her. She's going to be with us for 5 years.
Yo creo que quizás pasó como a la segunda visita o algo así, como que ya nos presentamos formalmente. Y luego ya creo que en la segunda visita estaba como todo más tranquilo, como muy... como que el ambiente era muy familiar, entonces yo me sentí muy cómoda.
I felt like she cared for Sparrow too, and Sparrow really enjoyed it. Yeah, she knew when Gabby came we were going to be making something or learning something, and she'd instantly start digging through Gabby's bags to find out what activity we were going to do.
Not only did we get the assistance with this program, but we also made a really good friend. I'm happy to call Gabby our friend.
I think the relationship that we've built has been just, she's a part of the family.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and
October meeting of the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency. We'll begin by taking roll call. Enough, ready?
Here. Director Navarez. Director McNairland,
Present.
Director Watt,
Here.
Vice Chair Crane, Chair McGordy.
Here. Okay, now we'll move on to public comment. These are for items not on the agenda. This time is reserved for the public to address the board about matters not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the board. Persons wishing to speak on specific agenda items should do so at this time specified, or I'm sorry, persons wishing to speak on specific agenda items should do so at the time this specific item is on the agenda. I don't see anyone in the room, and I don't believe we have anyone online. So we'll move on to the next agenda item. The next agenda item is discussion and possible actions on the City of Ukiah's scope of work and budget for Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency Administrative Services. And Sean White, you're up.
That on? Can't tell. Yes? That sounds like it. Okay. Morning, Sean White, Director of Water Resources for the city. At the last meeting, there was just a request to see if we could figure out if the city could do this, and if so, how would the cost compare to having it done an outside consulting firm. I went through a number of sort of mental exercises to figure this out after looking at the scope that they had and the cost associated with it. And in the end of the day, while I think there are lots of changes that can be made to the scope and the amount of hours applied to things, to how we do stuff here, doing that while also applying our rates, which are different, really, oh wow, really didn't give us an opportunity for sort of apple-to-apple comparison. What's the cost differential using a consultant and using city staff? So in the end, what I ended up doing was working with our HR department to get the cost, the fully burdened cost of city staff, and for each of the team members that I thought it would take to sort of put together the combination of skill sets we'd need to do this. So for instance, any meeting notes or minutes are by our city clerk, and things that need sort of more water intensive review are done by me, things that are more general are done by Blake, things that are more invoicey were to be done by an administrative analyst in the Public Works Department. And then I applied that to the level of effort that was already forecast by West Yost. So it would be basically the same scope of work and the same amount of hours, just with city rates. And that I thought was our best attempt to get to an apples to apples comparison. And if that was satisfactory, I spent a lot of time changing the effort and scope later on, but to just get a basic cost comparison, I used the same work, the same hours, just changing personnel. And in the end, the city is cheaper, and I don't think that should be, I mean, too big of a surprise, because we are not a for-profit entity. So our hourly in general was somewhere between 30 to 50% less than using a consultant, and it just depended on the sort of allocation of effort for any certain task where those things lied. So with that, I did change how some of the hours were allocated, but in the end of the day, it's the same total. And with that, I thought this, we wanted to see just, I think, a first pass, sort of a proof of concept. And I think this shows that can be done. And again, if there's any further refinement you want to make, should you decide to move ahead, I think there's probably more money saved if you'd like to. With that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, so directors, are there any questions? Chris?
Yeah, thanks for putting that together, that comparison, Sean. Just some things I've thought about and wanted to get your take on it. Would you say that the scope of work that the administrator of the GSA did, say, in the GSP development phase and kind of organizing the government and all that phase, as compared to what we see going forward with plan implementation phase, are that different? Or what is your take on like the different scopes of work?
I do think it will be different. You know, the last few years we have really been in the building mode and figuring things out, and we had some very controversial labor intensive things as well, like the rate and fee study and all of the outreach, et cetera, that went with that. I think now that that's established, we have a monitoring network laid out and a plan for automating some of that. I think we're much more into just sort of a maintenance mode than a development mode. And so I do think as things sort of normalize and this agency matures and sort of finds what it really needs to do and what it doesn't need to do, I think it's a much simpler era.
I can continue.
Please.
Yeah, I have a similar perspective. I think I would maybe phrase what we have going forward as the implementation side of things. And it seems like this agency has developed enough relationships with technical experts on that type of work. Do you see that the scope of work going forward requires any special skills or certifications that city staff don't have?
Yeah, and I think that was in my email to. I'm sorry. Anyways, in the email where I transmitted that, there were some hours in West Yost things for things like a hydrogeologist, which we don't have, but we do have legions of those at Larry Walker or some other source where for that small bit of the pie we can put those humans in for you.
Got it. And then I think my last question is, I mean, my opinion is that having a member agency that has local knowledge and relationships and maybe can do business at a lower cost makes a lot of sense. And but I think in order to maybe allay any concerns about having a member agency who happens to be the largest groundwater user in the area also be the administrator, we ought to look to make sure that there's some checks and balances in place so that the public and the board members feel comfortable that there's not undue influence and whatnot. And so my only thought on that I came up with, I think there needs to be a very strong relationship between the board chair position and the administrator to make sure that the board feels comfortable that their administrator is, that they can report that they're have oversight of the administrator to the degree necessary. That's the only suggestion I've got there.
I don't disagree with that, right? There is this sort of potential inherent conflict. I think it's really good to have the data and the report really prepared by a third party, like Larry Walker, whoever we end up using in the future. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to use our resilience officer. They're in the planning department. They don't work for me. They're great track record of not listening to me, but like in a healthy way, right? So I think having it just not in my department is also useful, and I think it'll be imperative for everyone involved to look at the data, challenge not just the administrator, but whoever's preparing the report and collecting the data as well, to keep it, nonpartisan and just above board. So I don't disagree with any of that.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Director Crane? Nope. So I think your answer to my question is where in your organizational chart is this agency going to be administered? And I think you answered the question. Can you give us any further details?
This is all still very early in the phase, but the city does have a resilience officer in the planning department. And when I was looking at where this would live in the city, I think having it in a department that already sort of regulates planning and growth and resources and all that sort of thing was sort of better than inside the production side of things, which is sort of what I do. But we still need some water experience to look at things. So the vast majority of the time, and the estimate I prepared is planning staff, with contract administration staff, which I think is a lot of this, both grants and invoices and that sort of thing. And then just with clerking, clerking a good meeting and meeting prep is a ton of time. And I would say my overall participation in it would just be reviewing technical things before they get shipped out. So it's probably like a 10% effort on my part. It's mostly Blake and Christine and Seth and not me.
And the financial interaction, or I should say the interaction between the county and the city for finances, how have you thought about that and how it's going to work?
We exchange money with the county pretty regularly through tax things, and I don't think that part of it's difficult at all. But I know talking to Amber, she was really hoping we could get it down to a very simple annual cost with just a monthly invoice that's the same to just keep cash flow sort of predictable and regular. And I don't see any reason we can't get there either.
Okay. Does staff wish to weigh in? Harry, anything that you want to add to the conversation at this point?
I guess the upside is that Sean's estimate has bandwidth, that if there is, if for some reason it turns out to be a little more complicated exercise than was forecast, there's certainly headroom in the budget to absorb that. So, and the only other thing I would say, and I don't know that it has to be answered today, but we're in October, and what are Sean's thoughts in terms of when we might start to transition this work?
Yeah, I really haven't put that much thought into it, only because I wanted to get past this first blush review of rates and whether or not this entity even had any desire to entertain going this way. And if that's what comes out of today, I'll be happy to work with you, Harry, to figure out sort of the best and most efficient time to switch over.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from board members? If not, I would request a motion to approve the recommendation from the board to accept the proposed cost estimate for the City of Ukiah for administration services of the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency. And the chair would direct the ad hoc committee and legal services to prepare an agreement with the City of Ukiah for administration services for the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency.
Point of clarification, Chair.
Yes.
So your first part of the motion was about accepting what'd you say?
Recommendations from the board.
It was something about accepting a cost?
Proposed cost estimate.
Okay. Just a clarification, Mr. White, is this a proposed cost estimate?
You know, I don't know that it really is, right? What I was doing in this exercise is, again, like I said earlier, trying to just compare what it would cost if we were using the same level of effort per task as the consultant we're using currently. I don't think it's a bad place to start, because like Harry said, you know, we have not done this before. They have, and I wouldn't mind starting the first year with based on their work, and then if we can trim things and do it more efficiently in the future, I'm happy to revisit it. We have a lot going on at the city right now and don't really need to absorb a giant pile of extra work. So if we can make it lean more efficient, we'd be happy to do so.
So I see two parts in this, what I'm asking here. One is to accept what John has given us, and the next part is to actually negotiate a contract with the city.
Real quick, what ad hoc is it?
We have a financial ad hoc.
Oh, finance ad hoc.
Yeah.
On that.
I'm not sure. We haven't met for a while, so perhaps we have to reappoint, or
I thought, aren't you on that, Adam?
it's probably Adam and Beth.
I think it's Adam and Beth.
Myself.
Point of clarification, I mean, isn't an ad hoc designated for a specific purpose? It seems like a finance ad hoc is really a standing committee.
You're right. And
that's true.
Yeah, and this is still part of the process, because the finance ad hoc got together to discuss, you know, possibly changing from West Yost to the city. I know that's part of their task. So I think this is still ongoing. The task hasn't been finished. So the rule for, at least for Mendocino County, our ad hocs are kind of a maximum of about a year. So they are specific, but if they're going to go on more than a year, then they become a standing committee, which then starts to get Brown Act involvement, and we don't want to go that direction if we can avoid it.
So just a clarification. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that originally the ad hoc was for the rate and fee study. I mean, it was financial, but it was to fine tune that budget, which now it's basically over.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to appoint a new ad hoc for
Okay,
this.
then we'll do that. So let's kind of remodify this and make it into a couple parts here. So the first thing is to accept I would entertain a motion to accept the data that Sean has presented to us on cost comparisons. And part two would be...
Would it be appropriate to refer to it as a...
Yeah, a report. Accept a report from Sean White on a comparison of costs between the city of Ukiah and West Yost.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Director McNairland?
Aye.
Director Watt?
Yes.
Vice Chair Crane?
Aye.
Chair McGorty?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Now the second part would be to appoint an ad hoc committee to... Let me get the exact word.
To work with legal counsel to prepare an agreement with the City of Ukiah for administration services, Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Agency.
Clarification, I guess, Mr. White, what's your next move here?
My next move is at the direction of this board.
What's your suggested next move?
That's my next move. Like I said, if you would like us to do it, we would be happy to do it. And I would meet with your ad hoc to figure out the details of that.
Okay, so is it your recommendation that a scope of work, or what is it what is the next product that comes out?
So again, I don't want to produce a scope of work in a cave, right?
Yeah.
I think it'd be important to talk to some of your peers to figure out not only, we've figured out the hourly comparison now, whether or not we want to try and prune things now or leave it as it is and prune things in year 2 or 3. Once, I think this implementation phase is still very young, so I would expect as the years go on and this becomes very routine, both the number of meetings, the number of phone calls, the number of, hey, what in the heck is this, is all going to drop off. But it's really not my place to figure that out all by myself and bring it back sort of blind. I'd much rather develop that with, probably Amber and some board members here and figure out what we think is most appropriate together.
One more question, Chair. So is it your expectation that the next step is to prepare an agreement? Like a legal agreement for services?
I think probably a scope of work and a contract together, right?
Okay.
It's the same. I mean,
Okay.
not the same, but it's linked.
So the next thing that this board may see is an agreement for the city to perform services with a scope of work that you have developed in concert with this agency's.
That would be my preferred approach.
Got it.
We can make a motion to just appoint an ad hoc committee to work with the city of Ukiah to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's
just
exactly
keep it very general so that
so what it actually says here in the chair script is chair to direct an ad hoc committee and legal counsel to prepare an agreement with the city of Ukiah for administrative services for the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency.
Harry's got a question.
All right.
I just wanted to make a suggestion. Typically ad hoc committees are single function, and having a name for the ad hoc committee, I think, would be for the single function that you're appointing it, which would be transition of GSA services, GSA admin services. That's just a suggestion. So,
okay.
And to the point of scope of work, I mean, we take a lot of pride in the scope of work we developed, and it was very lean. It was intended to simply operate and manage the basic affairs of the GSA, and so I would encourage Sean and the board to utilize the existing work we did, at least as a starting point as you're working this out.
And I don't disagree with that at all. I think if we start there and see how the actuals come along, it will be formative.
Sean, who's your recommended group from this entity to work with the city that would constitute an ad hoc?
I will stray away from, you're going to need some elected, and I'll let you pick those, but I think having Amber there would be great.
How about from the TAC?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having Beth there as well. I've spoken with her about this already.
I think Adam would be
Yeah.
Yeah.
good. We should have 2 board members, 2 experienced people who've been on this board for a while, who know the ins and outs.
Yeah, I think that's good. Typically what we've done in our ad hocs is have 2 board members and 2 TAC members. It's been kind of our composition. So I don't know if we have to name our
Yes, you do. So ask if there's volunteers.
Yep.
Adam volunteered. You appoint them, and then we vote to confirm it for the transitional ad hoc committee.
Okay, so the
Would you do it?
So we don't have all the TAC members here, so that's the only thing that.
But we only need to appoint these
The board
members,
yeah.
and then everyone else can just attend and give their input. We only need to appoint the board members.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion?
Well, who wants to be on it with that?
Well, I'll certainly serve with it. Nobody else will.
Okay.
My time is limited though, so this has to be done by January 1 if we're going to get this done.
So then you appoint, say as the board chair, I appoint, and then we take a vote to confirm that.
Okay, so as a board chair, I appoint myself and Adam from our board to be on the transitional ad hoc a transitional administrative ad hoc that will work with the city of Ukiah to develop an agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I think we're ready for roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Chair McGorty.
Yes.
Thank you
Motion
very
passes.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Sean.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're on to item B, which is approve outstanding invoice for county administrative services for fiscal year 21-22 and 22-23. And I see Amber Fassett is on the call. If we can bring her in to explain what we need. Okay, Amber?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Amber Fassett, Mendocino County. So in looking at some of our budget stuff this past year, I realized that we missed reimbursing the county for administrative services for 2 of the 4 years that we have done it. And it had to do with just a little checkbox being missed when the project tracking code was set up. And so I have submitted this invoice, which is for 21-22 and 22-23, which was budgeted in previous fiscal years, but did not actually get paid in those fiscal years. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from board members? Teresa?
Yeah, so it's very general admin services. So what exactly is that? Because it seems like a pretty hefty $14,500 for 1 year.
So in fiscal year 21-22, there was no West Yost. Mendocino County was providing all administrative services for the GSA, including development of the GSP and running all the board and TAC meetings, managing grants. So that's why it was a larger amount then. And then in 22-23 was the year I believe that West Yost took over, and so that was more assisting with the transition, and then doing, we review and process all the invoices, and so the amount has gone down from what it used to be, but that's why there's a drastic difference between those 2 fiscal years. And I think this past fiscal year, which did get reimbursed, was even less than 5,000. I can't remember the exact amount, but it's gone down every year as we've sort of done less and less administration.
And we had a contract with the county to provide these services?
Don't know that you had a contract. It was in development, so I think we just assumed the role and as part of the JPA. So.
Yeah, it was under the JPA.
But it was assumed we would get billed for all this?
Yes. Yes. Especially now the county can't really provide much services for free because of our financial situation, so.
Yeah, there's a line item in our annual budget for this service and expense.
Other questions, Chris?
So Amber, will this continue, or has this been transitioned? Will this be transitioned out, or will it continue?
So at this point, we are still only billing for basically the financial services that we provide. So it's anything above and beyond. I have sort of 2 tracking codes. One is things we do as a member agency of the GSA that all other member agencies do. And then another project tracking code that I use is things that we do sort of that are administrative that aren't something that other member agencies do. So at this point, like I said, it's much lower than it was. But if the city of Ukiah takes over as administrator and takes over the finances, then this would not continue at all. There would be no reason for us to track this and bill this. Now, there may be a transition period. I was thinking about on the last item, for instance, if for say the first year we don't go with a flat fee and instead go with an hourly charge, the board may decide that they still want the county to, you know, sort of review the invoices as a double check, as opposed to the city just submitting an invoice and paying themselves. So that would be up to the board. But once we are removed as the sort of financial partner of the GSA, then we will not bill this.
I guess I didn't hear in the presentation from Mr. White if there was an intention for the city to run the finances. When you say that, do you mean operate the account that the money is held in and that the bills are paid from?
Correct. And in my conversations with Sean, that makes the most sense eventually, but there may need to be a sort of a transition period where they take over administration, but we still continue to do that. But right now, the funds are held in the county's treasury, and it to me, it makes the most sense to transfer that eventually to the city.
Other questions? Yeah, I'd entertain a motion for the recommended action.
I guess I have a question. I thought I heard our administrator say that there was already a line item in our budget for this. So was there no line item in 21, 22, 22, 23?
There was a line item in those years. It just didn't actually get reimbursed at the end of the year. So these were budgeted expenses in those years. They just didn't, the actual reimbursement did not happen.
Okay, so when we say a budget adjustment, it's the the profit and loss statement. We're gonna apply it to those years, or are we gonna pay it in this year?
It has to, because those fiscal years are already closed, it needs to be paid out of this fiscal year. So even though they were budgeted expenses in those fiscal years, because those budgets are now closed, it needs to be a budget adjustment to this fiscal year that we're currently.
So we're gonna move those line items that we had in the prior years and we're gonna put them into this year. Is that right, Harry?
That's right. And so the fiscal impact in simple terms is these will be paid out of reserves.
I'll move the recommended action.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Vice Chair Crane,
Aye.
Chair McGorty.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Item C. So is West Yost proposal for not to exceed time and materials contract. Barry?
Okay, so at the August board meeting, we talked about the concept of what West Yost's role would be in the transition. Obviously, we have a role, and what would be the best approach to support this transition to the city of Ukiah. I suggested at the August meeting that we just develop a separate not to exceed contract to do this work. We've spoken internally about what we think it might take. Again, it's our best guess. It could be less, it could be more, but we would suggest that the board approve a motion not to exceed a time and materials contract with West Yost for additional work performed to transition the administrative services to the city of Ukiah in the amount of $15,000.
So moved.
There's a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion before we vote? Okay. Don't see any discussion here. Any discussion online? Public comment? Nope. So I think we're ready for a vote.
Aye.
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 All right.
Vice Chair Crane,
Aye.
Chair McGorty.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. On to item D, which is the LWA contract amendment for well inventory study. Harry?
Okay, so this work has been previously approved by the board. We are bringing it back to you to approve the amendment to increase the total budget amount for the expanded scope of work required to execute the well inventory study.
Questions?
Harry, excuse my maybe ignorance here. I thought we did this last meeting.
I think it just puts a bow on it, Chris. That was the question I had when I saw it show up on the amendment on the agenda. I think this just officializes it, if that's such a word.
Other questions?
And I think lacking from the last time we talked about this was the actual amendment. But to your point, though, it does appear duplicative.
This is in essence a cleanup.
Yes.
I move the recommended action.
Second?
I'll second.
Any public comment in the room? No. Comment online? No. Then I think we're ready for a vote.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director McNearland, Director Watt,
Yes.
Vice Chair Crane,
Aye.
Chair McGorty.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're on to item E, which is California Department of Fish and Wildlife grant-funded groundwater dependent ecosystem and interconnected surface water studies. Okay. Harry, you want to talk on this?
Sure. And Laura, please, I'm gonna defer mostly to Laura on this, but this is great news. This is a grant for almost $1.4 million to study groundwater dependent ecosystems and interconnected surface waters. And it's born out of a recent development by DWR. They've developed some guidance documents on how this is supposed to take place. Congratulations to LWA who wrote the grant application. Because of the significance of the grant amount, we just kind of reflected upon the appropriateness of discussing the procurement process for this. Specifically, if it's appropriate to commission an RFP to solicit input from other firms. Not to intimate that there's any dissatisfaction with LWA, but just in the just being proper stewards of public money, that question was posed. We have provided legal counsel opinion on that in very simple terms. They have recommended we do issue an RFP, and so we present that recommendation to the board for consideration, and I'll yield the floor to Laura and Audra.
Laura?
And thank you, Ari. So what we I don't know if Audra has a quick summary just to remind everybody on what was in this grant, just because so much time went by since when we applied. And if that's okay, I think Audra can share her screen and just give all a quick summary, a quick reminding of what is included there.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Go ahead.
That's right. Thank you, board members, and thank you, Laura. So this is just a quick 3-slide reminder of some of the reason that the board directed us to submit for this grant and some of the content of the scope of work. And so again, as a reminder, we submitted actually the interconnected surface water study initially as part of those DWR implementation grant round 2. Unfortunately, the Ukiah GSA was not awarded any funds during that time. So we sought out other opportunities to perhaps secure funding to help pursue this study and allow the GSA to be able to do that. And so another motivation for doing this was also the fact that in the approval letter for the Ukiah GSP, DWR again highlighted the fact that they really wanted to see a greater understanding brought forth, additional information collected to really start to get at the location and timing of interconnection and characterization of those groundwater dependent ecosystems that were mentioned previously. And again, this interconnected surface water study was identified by the TAC as one of the recommended 3 sort of actions to be pursued in advance of that 2027 periodic update. And to give a little bit of context again for newer board members as well, we actually submitted the application for this grant 1 year ago today, back in October 2023. We requested about $1.3 million. That full amount was awarded in a letter last month. So very pleased to get that on behalf of the GSA. The fully executed grant agreement is anticipated by about mid-November this year. And then the grant activities, the project would need to be completed by March 2028. So this would be a multi-year project. And again, just to give a sense for some of the scope that is included, there's additional detail, of course, but to give a broad overview, there would be additional work that would be put forth to identify and monitor important stretches of interconnectivity and areas of those groundwater dependent ecosystems. There would also be an effort to track both spatial and temporal trends. And then there would be an effort to improve the model's representation of these conditions and a model calibration that would incorporate data that result from these monitoring efforts. This would also inform update of those minimum thresholds and measurable objectives, which were among the comments we received from DWR. And again, all of this work would be geared towards as well preparing the GSA for that January 2027 periodic evaluation. All right, so just keeping it very simple, but that gives you a sense for kind of the history behind this project and some of the work that it will be funding. Thank you so much.
Questions from board members? Chris.
Harry, thank you for providing your email this morning, paraphrasing the legal opinion. What was the question asked of our attorney?
Does this rise to the level of warranting an RFP? Can we, and it was more simply, can we sole source it?
Oh, okay. I'm trying to understand the line of inquiry.
Yeah. Was it okay to sole source LWA?
Got it.
And we explored our procurement policy, which allows for contract amendments to extend existing work. And, you know, one could argue that there is latitude in our existing policy to do that. And, but the scope, the size, the magnitude of this effort seemed to be, in legal counsel's opinion, beyond the intent of why that policy was originally drafted by counsel. So,
got it.
Yeah.
So another question, and I'm not sure if this came up in the discussion with the attorney, because of LWA's role in applying for the grant, was there any concern from the attorney that they would be excluded from proposing because of specialized knowledge they may have about the grant itself?
I know that there are instances where if you write the grant app, you can't be the recipient of the funds. We didn't find a clear determination to that extent. In fact, I think my recommendation as the administrator would be to include LWA in the procurement opportunity, just because of their unique knowledge. And and the fact that they've developed the model, this data will feed into a model that they have. It's, you know, I think having efficiency in terms of incorporating the new information is of value to the GSA.
As far as we know, there's no prohibitions on that. Chris, I asked the same question.
Do we have our attorney's written opinion on that?
She's double checking. Yeah. There's nothing in our bylaws that prohibits it. And unless there's something that Cal Fish and Wildlife has to say about it, that's what we're checking.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, I want to make sure we have transparency and that we don't go down this route and end up in a kerfuffle that we could have avoided.
Yes, I agree. So we're double checking on that, and we'll...
Glenna, can I say something?
Sure.
Sorry, I just want to say we wrote a lot of these CDFW grants in the past couple of years, and we were kind of considered in the same way as the others when they put out the RFPs.
Okay,
and there were no problems for CDFW, so we are doing it in Siskiyou County and in Sierra Valley, and there were no issues for the agency.
Did you also write the RFPs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. The RFP, no.
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 That was my concern.
No.
Writing the RFP, because if you have them apply for the grant, and there are administrators, so
No,
write
they
the
can't.
RFP
No, they can't do that. So
so who would we have write the RFP?
Well, at this point, it would be probably our present staff.
Who is?
West Yost would
Okay.
probably request
Okay.
Harry to work on this.
Happy to do that, and also happy to defer to Sean if he wants to take this on. I don't know what their RFP process is. I mean, it's we work at the pleasure of the board. So if it makes sense to engage City of Ukiah in a transition activity like this, we're happy to work with them, and we're also happy to take it on and make it happen.
Sean, do you care to comment?
They're old pros at this. I would say it's worth at least asking Sean. And the other comment I have is I've never seen an ad hoc because I saw that the attorney recommended an ad hoc committee for the RFP, and I've never really seen that before. So I would rather just trust the city or our administrators.
Sure. So typically what ad hoc committees do in these RFP situations is that they're guiding the RFP. There's two ways to do it, is that you can just turn it over to somebody, or you can have guidance from an ad hoc committee. John?
I would say for timeliness, because I think this is important, I would recommend having our current administrator do it. I'd like to seek it out. Our RFP process can be agonizing.
Okay.
And Teresa, just to respond to your comment, I do think that having people like Sean and Beth and perhaps a board member or two review the RFP, particularly people that have technical insight into how the valley works, would serve the GSA well. That would be my recommendation.
Question?
I mean, I haven't read the grant application, so I can't speak to those specifics, but I mean, an RFP is really just soliciting a proposal, and the grant identifies identifies the scope of work, I would presume. And so I would caution against making this a long, involved, drawn-out process with multiple reviewers. I mean, I think if we have professionals that can do this, of course, if they want to check with TAC members on questions, but I don't think constituting something formal really benefits us. I think we do need to select a panel at some point to review the proposals received, and maybe that's where we invest our time in having something more involved and formal.
Well, that's a possibility. We could just have the RFP come to the board for discussion, if you like, and that's probably the most expedient way, and then appoint an ad hoc to review the proposals once they've been submitted.
Yeah, I think a panel, I don't know if it's an ad hoc per se, maybe it is if it's constituted in a certain way, to be the reviewers of the RFP and make a recommendation to the board on who to contract with.
Okay, I see Laurel has her hand raised. Laurel?
I just want to make sure that however you work this out, you review the tasks that we are already funded to do under the Bureau of Reclamation grant as it addresses surface water, groundwater interactions. Just to make sure, because Larry Walker and Associates knows those tasks very well because they're working on them. But if you go to a different contractor, we don't want them to redo all the work that's already been done because they aren't aware of it.
Okay, so this, you bring up a really important point, and we want to be sure that we're aware of where we are in our present studies. And Laurel, your work is not being sanctioned under the GSA, correct?
Well, if you recall, the GSA originally said they wanted partners to apply for grants. And then when we were successful, the GSA coordinator was unhappy with us for being successful. So yeah, we've done this kind of on our own. We have a technical advisory group that includes some of you. And we have, through Larry Walker and Associates, completed an update of the model, which is something the GSA is supposed to fund. We've also done a topographic survey of 14 miles of the river so that we can relate river levels and pumping and groundwater use. And we're working on a decision support tool for all the water managers, including all the farmers in the valley. So these things are all related. This one is much more focused on specifically how streams and wetlands, which there are almost none of, relate to groundwater use and other hopefully geomorphic processes in the basin. But the work that we're doing also relates to that. So I just am saying, if you get a different contractor than Larry Walker and Associates, you could have people redoing what's already been done.
Okay, so how are we going to have some sort of a check system to be sure we're not duplicating existing work?
Well, I would hope that the tasks, we can give you a copy of the contract. Well, we've already done that. And the tasks in there are not repeated in your RFP.
Okay, that would be useful if you'd provide Harry with that information so that we have a relevant and clean RFP that doesn't backtrack on stuff that's already been completed.
Yeah, and at some point when we have, some of the scenarios done or other information that would be of interest, we'll certainly give presentations to you.
Okay. Harry, comment?
No, thank you, Laurel. I was not aware of this companion effort, and so it does sound like there's obvious value in coordinating what this effort is going to be with the effort that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and do I understand correctly that LWA is supporting you in the effort you're describing?
Yes, they're one of the contractors. We're also installing instrumentation on 3 wells, and we've been coordinating with them on that too.
Right. Okay. Noted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so we have recommended action, right, which is the GSA staff recommends the board discuss the procurement process, which we've done, and we're comfortable. Would someone like to propose that we work with our existing administrative support to develop the RFP? Someone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to direct West Yost to develop an RFP for the interconnected groundwater dependent ecosystem study.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other conditions?
Got a question.
I just want to add a little color to how I would perceive the assignment proceeding. Again, I hate to always recycle this statement, but this work is out of scope for us and we don't have budget. However, that's the good thing. The positive is there is budget within the grant to support this effort. There's a budget of $80,000 for GSA support of the grant. And so I just wanted to daylight that for the board and let them know that it would be our expectation that our fee to develop the RFP, which it's between $10,000 and $15,000, depending. If we can do it more like Chris would like, I think we'll stay under 10. If we're getting, feedback and there's people that want to weigh in on it, it might grow. But our fee then, or our work to do this then would be paid for out of the grant.
I had a question, Harry. So is it your contention that there isn't anything in your current approved budget that would match this work?
No, Chris, our budget is really stripped down. I hate to characterize it as keep the lights on, but it was the minimum budget, and we're already seeing budget pressures with the.
Okay, so here's a question then. Can you reallocate something like you've got a $24,000 budget for grant writing, a $20,000 for GSP implementation oversight, and these are all PMA drivens, and it seems to me that this is a PMA.
It's a new PMA though. It was not. This was not on our radar when we developed our budget, or we would have inflated that.
I would say per board direction, we could reallocate. Sorry, hi everyone, I'm chiming in. Apologies, Harry, to interrupt. But I would say if the board directs and does not anticipate a grant application incoming, that could be part of the conversation, and the board could direct that reallocation of budget.
Okay, so do we want to amend the motion to say to be paid by reallocated funds from the existing budget?
Well, only if the grant would reimburse those funds.
Or how do you want to handle it?
Why make our ratepayers pay that when a grant will pay for that, right? But, I mean, how many hours does an RFP take? I mean, you've got all the information in the grant.
We spent about, Therese, 40 hours on a less complex RFP in Sonoma. And you can do the math at $200 plus an hour, what that would be. I would be happy if the board is fine with us billing to the grant. I'm fine with that. If they want to do a reallocation and do it within our existing budget from the grant cycle, well,
I would like to see it billed to the grant. I want it to come out of our budget that our fees are based on.
Okay, straw poll. How many people feel the same way?
And I guess maybe for clarification, regardless of where it comes from, regardless of whether this is grant reimbursable or not, is where Harry's coming from. This would not impact ratepayers. This is just coming from a mentality from our West Yost perspective that there have been questions on where our budgets have been allocated in the past, and we want to make very crystal clear where those allocations are coming from. We would certainly seek and could seek reimbursement on the RFP process through this grant, is my understanding.
So if I can, maybe Harry, check me on this. So it's either we amend our budget and add a scope of work for writing this RFP, or we reallocate a task in our existing budget to write this RFP. But in either event, we're going to seek reimbursement from the grant for that activity.
yes, that's right, Chris.
But, sorry, can I jump in, Harry?
You can't
Absolutely.
amend a budget without it being on the agenda.
I'm just not sure that the RFP will be grant reimbursable.
Okay.
So I didn't have nobody else included the RFP in the grant. So I would caution everybody about that.
So accepting that as a potential outcome, my suggestion would be that we just reallocate existing budget to do it, and we'll try to seek reimbursement through the grant if we can. But acknowledging that we're going to cover our costs through a budget reallocation, which the board has allowed me latitude to do in the past. So when I brought budget reallocations to the board previously, I mean, it was universally accepted.
Okay.
If it had the correct justification.
Adam.
Yeah, I was going to point out, reading the letter that the CDFW sent to Laura, that we cannot incur any contract costs for work done prior to the execution date of the grant agreement, which will be no sooner than November 15th. So they wouldn't be able to start work until November 15th if we were. So I think we are going to have to reallocate budget money. I mean, if we want them to start tomorrow, or we wait.
Yeah. Board members, what's your pleasure? Teresa?
November 15th isn't that far away.
A month.
Yeah, so I say we wait. And then for transparency, if we're going to move the budget around, it needs to.
Yeah.
Right. But there's, so let's say that we'll move forward, West Yost, RFP, after November 15th. And it can get billed to the grant.
I think isn't there a time sensitivity, Laura? We need to get going on this now. We can't wait until November 15th to start working on the RFP.
There is not, I mean, the time sensitivity is just that, if we start in November 15 with the RFP, then by the time you have a consultant working on the project, is sometime next spring. And then we are missing out on, since this grant is mostly about data collection, and ahead of the GSP reevaluation, we only have a couple of winters and summers. So I don't know, that's the only sensitivity around it. Also, I really would say I would not count much on the RFP process being really refunded through the grant. I really don't think that's gonna happen.
Okay, so and to your point, Teresa, about transparency, we're discussing this in open session right now.
I know, but according to the Brown Act, if you're going to do something like amend a budget, it does have to be an agenda item. Any action at a meeting has to be on the agenda and specifically say it's an action item. Well, that's one thing I'm familiar with is the Brown Act.
We're not talking about amending the budget. We're just talking about a reallocation within the existing budget total. That's all we're doing.
For the West Yost contract, not the agency budget, just to be explicitly clear.
So the county certainly makes adjustments to budgets and arrears all the time.
What was the downside of waiting a month?
It just slows the whole process up. And since some of this is time sensitive, we want to have some of our scientists on the ground when there's actually water in the creeks and tributaries. Right, so Laurel, I don't know, are you still with us? So
yeah,
you can weigh in on that in terms of what some of your work is done. What's the most important time to have people there, and how is this going to affect the process of the study?
Yeah, our experience is that if we can install or start data collection before the summer, it's really giving us a lot of information, which means we need to start, let's say, February, March, or April. But my experience is that if you wait after November for the RFP, it's most likely you will not have anybody on board until sometimes March or April. I don't know. This is how it works, unless you guys commit and do things super quickly.
And I mean, stating the obvious, our days are numbered working for the GSA. And so if you're going to engage us to do the RFP, I would say let's do it now while, while we have time left in our contract with the GSA.
We'll just shuffle around the money that's in their contract, the line items, right?
Correct.
No numbers will change on our side, only their
That's
side.
correct. That's correct.
That's, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You can double check with legal counsel to be sure it's correct if you want to stipulate that.
No, I that's fine.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion on the floor. Did we get a second?
Want to amend your motion?
Adam?
Yeah, I'll amend my motion to, we're waiting till November? Or
No.
what's the amendment?
We're gonna
to reallocate
reallocate money within the existing West Yost tasks on their approved budget.
Yeah, so I'll amend my motion to direct West Yost to reallocate money from our budget.
And to have West Yost.
And have West Yost develop the RFP.
Okay. Is there a second?
Can I have just a, maybe not amending the motion, but I think Harry's certainly within his role to seek advice from TAC and others to help him with that as needed, right? You don't have any problem with that, Harry?
No, I think it add value to it, Chris, to have a little bit of input from Beth and Sean.
And then given the relationships, it would be okay to just run it through council? Would that, or, I know you sought council's opinion prior to this meeting, so once the RFP, because the email from council specifically talks about the wording of the RFP, so as to not try to influence, right? So would that be something you would have council review
Yes.
after the RFP is complete?
Yes. Often council reviews RFPs. That's not unusual. So
Did you second that, Doug? No.
okay. So do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion from board members? Any public comment online or in the room? Seeing none, I think we can call for the question.
Director Gasca?
Aye.
Director McNearland?
Aye.
Director Watt?
Yes.
Vice Chair Crane?
Aye.
Chair McGorty?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to the Groundwater Sustainability Fee Outreach Plan. Harry?
Okay, so, Indigo, I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you to tag team a little bit with me, but we've put a plan together to handle anticipated calls related to the fee bills that are going out. And it relies on the board members and their availability to respond to some of these calls. And I'm just going to stop right there and just say that's kind of where we're at in simple terms. And that's what's been outlined. One little glitch in the overall billing process that I want to make the board aware of is that the county has a threshold for issuing a bill, which makes sense. You're not going to send a bill to someone for 25 cents or 50 cents or something like that. And in some cases, that will prohibit us from collecting the GSA assessment through the county bill process. And so we have to do what's called a hand bill or a direct bill. And I don't know what the current count on that is, Indigo, but when we spoke last, it was in excess of 100 hand bills that have to be issued for that. So we're trying to be efficient, and we similarly don't want to send bills out for 10 cents, but we want to responsibly collect what's due and what should be collected by the GSA for this budget. And so we're playing with some thresholds of, okay, so what's the right number? Is it $1? Is it $5? What if we collected 95% of the revenue? Where does that move the bar? And so I just want to alert the board that we're actively navigating this particular issue. I'm sorry I hijacked the overall topic with something that I'd like Indigo to bore in on a little bit deeper, and that's our outreach plan.
Okay, Director Crane.
Question.
Yeah.
Is there a prohibition about establishing a minimum billing amount that would conform to what the county bills? One of the comments that I made quite a few meetings ago when we were talking about the distribution of the cost, made a remark to the effect that it seemed ridiculous that some of these bills would be in the pennies or very few dollars. And that in part addresses this challenge. So is there a way to establish a minimum amount to deal with this, and therefore all of it would go through the county system?
So I want to clarify, so to Harry's point, there are a number of reasons that we issue handbills. They're not just due to the assessed value being lower than the county will issue a property tax bill for. Other common reasons that we would issue handbills are if a property is government owned, is owned by another tax exempt organization like a nonprofit. I'm sure there's a handful of others that I'm forgetting at this moment. Also, public water systems get their invoices hand-billed. So there are a number of reasons that we get handbills. What Harry was trying to address is that we are receiving a higher number of handbills than we had originally anticipated with this fee cycle because the county has a threshold for an assessed, what they consider a low value property that they will not issue a tax bill on, period, which is something that neither Catherine nor I had come across with our experiences with hand billing in other counties. So we are receiving a higher volume of hand billing asks than we have. And what the county assesses of property value at can be different than what the GSA fee is. So we might have a GSA fee that is higher on a property that would exceed whatever threshold we want to say, if we set a $2 threshold or whatever that is. But the county might still consider it a low income or a low value property, not necessarily low income, and therefore would not issue a threshold. So we will always have some handbills, is the point I was trying to make. In terms, to answer your question, Director Crane, of whether we can set a threshold, I would say that is a question for legal. We don't have them present here today, but we can certainly follow up with that.
Seems worthwhile to follow that up, because it may be that if it does have to go out as a handbill, those costs can be recovered. Because to bill people where it winds up being negative as a result of billing them, that's like nobody won anything.
Right.
There's no revenue for the intended purpose, and it drove revenue on others that was not the intent of the system, hopefully.
Okay, Teresa? You're not on.
What it sounds like, though, is the county is not putting a property tax on low valued property. So it doesn't matter what the threshold is, they're not getting a bill. I've never heard of that before. What is that value? Are we imposing our tax onto a vacant lot that somebody owns that has no value, or
well,
is that
our
in
fee
our
structure, if you'll recall, is an acreage-based base fee, but that applies to every acre within the basin. So there might be a parcel that is undeveloped that we have a base fee assessed on, and that is why they're getting charged.
What's the county number for value that they don't bill, that they
I'm
don't
not
have
sure,
any
they
property
haven't shared
tax?
that information with us.
I would think, I mean, that would have to be pretty low, right?
Yeah, it'd have to be some very strange piece of property that, you know, like a steep hillside little strip of something.
Yeah, and so that specific thing is increasing the number of handbills significantly? That
Yes.
one low value.
Correct. I would say we have maybe 80. I anticipated our handbills to be around 20 to 30, and we're over 100 at this point, and the county still has not provided the full list of low income or low value properties. They said there would be additional coming our way, hopefully today.
Chris, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, Indigo, do you have a roundabout value of the revenue that associated with the 80 or so handbills?
Depends on what threshold you set. We don't know why.
Well, we're
the
not
county-
setting the threshold. It's the ones the county gave back to you.
So the county kicked back a full list of 100, and I
Right.
can't say which of those are because they're tax exempt, which are government. The county doesn't necessarily tell us why they're kicking back each individual parcel. They don't assign a reason.
But what do those add up to, Indigo?
Right, I'm trying to go, is this a $100 problem or a $10,000 problem?
Yeah, we're getting there. I got you, Chris.
Yeah, it's around, I don't have those numbers in front of me. If you give me a second, I can pull them up, but it's around
$5,000 or something like that.
Yeah, in the $5,000 to $10,000 range.
Yeah, I don't want to spend $10,000 to collect 5,000.
Well, and that's the point of discussing this, is we're making decisions on how to efficiently bill and not waste time and money to, like Director Crane said, we don't want to go into the negative administering this, these small bills.
But I want to maybe, unless there's more questions on this, I think we have some legal advice that we need to seek as to what our ability is. And I'm hearing board consensus that they're interested in setting. We don't want to expend more money to collect if we don't have to. I wanted to touch base in this item on the outreach plan, since that's something. If the county is correct, property tax bills should be going out either today or tomorrow is what they last informed me, which was a week or two ago. So those dates might have shifted, but we did want to touch base and get board input in this outreach plan, since this is a time sensitive concern. And there has been, at least in my past experience of working with fee implementation, a high volume of calls when fees in a groundwater sustainability agency are implemented for the first time. I can talk through what we have proposed as the outreach plan for this, and I can even share screen on the outreach plan and share what we included in your packet.
While you're doing that, Indigo, I want to close off the other discussion. So we'll work with council on a practical approach to managing these handbills, and we'll report out on what that advice from council is.
Unless you have a comment on this. Okay. All right. Is that acceptable to everyone? Okay, sounds good.
Am I okay to move forward on the outreach plan?
Yep, go for it, Indigo. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries, thanks for closing that out. So the GSA's plan, we have a general phone number. You can see it here on the board, that's 707-370-4170 phone number. This is going to be included next to the fee on everyone's property tax bills, as well as published on our website, and is also included on any handbills that do get issued. This is a remote phone number. I don't know if any of you are familiar with like Google Voice or something like this. So that we use a platform called DialPad, and so the phone number is hosted on this remote platform and can be responded to by GSA staff. It's not a physical number, but I guess I'm highlighting that to say it's a transferable phone number that we can transfer to the city of Ukiah once they take administrative role in this. And so our proposal is that we will monitor, GSA staff, West Yost staff will monitor this phone number and respond to calls, all calls received either directly or via voicemail within 48 hours of receipt. This number is to ensure a prompt response to stakeholders in the area. We have a public inquiry log that we track the status of calls and also track issue resolution in case there's things, and so calls will be entered into that inquiry log. And if the call volume reaches more than 5 calls per week, we are proposing that board and TAC members that are available and interested would be forwarded those calls. And we would split those evenly amongst those that were willing to participate in this. As I mentioned, we are anticipating the call volume to be highest over the next 2 weeks, following property tax bills, which were initially anticipated to be mailed today, although that might have shifted slightly. I haven't heard an update from the assessor's office. So anyway, it would be whatever the 2 weeks following the property tax bills hitting mailboxes would be. If for those board members and staff and TAC members that are willing to respond to calls, we would expect, again, a 48-hour response, as well as incorporating that input into the public inquiry log so we can make sure that things are resolved. We have a talking points document that was included in your packet to help respond to questions. And then if there was more technical information, a call could be referred back to GSA staff to respond to that question if it was needed, maybe more hand-holding or something like that. So this is our proposal. This is the proposal in order to keep staff costs down, that we would incorporate board and TAC members also responding to calls, as well as knowing that you guys are really the local representatives and have the local relationships with the community. So I will end there on just the outreach plan as we're proposing. I would say the ask out today would be to say who on the board is willing to participate in responding to these calls. And then I also would like to share the new fee finder website, but I can pause and take questions now before I launch into the fee finder.
Okay, I will volunteer to take calls because that's part of my job, is to catch flack from my constituents. So it's something that I won't say I'm happy to do, but I'll certainly do because I think it's important that we try to explain this as clearly as possible to people who may not be happy about getting a new tax on their bill.
Is there a press release or something we can do to send out to all the media regarding this?
We've already issued press releases with the fees being published. I would say we certainly could put a press release now if the board directs. We have not budgeted to do that.
We have done that, Teresa.
There has been things published. It just has not been this month or recently.
Maybe we should run one of the ones that we've already done so that we can reacquaint people with the assessment.
I would argue that it might not matter, to be quite honest. In a press release, I haven't found that has necessarily negated the phone calls that you would receive, but it's certainly something we could do per board direction.
Yes.
Having it on the website.
It is on our website, correct. The fee is, all of the information around the fee is on our website.
Should stay in place.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
No, I would say my husband still reads the newspaper. So if he reads about it, at least when he sees the $4 on the bill, you know, he would never question $4 anyway, but at least he'll say, oh yeah, I read about it in the paper, you know. I don't know what the paper circulation is here still, but I mean, I do think we have readers. I think it would be worth, if it's not going to cost a bunch of money to put a press release out, I think that's a responsible thing to do.
I agree with you. I think that the more information people have at their fingertips, the better. And it also allows us to refer to that, you know, just email it to people if they're wondering about it, if it's or answer with our bullet points. But anything we can do to inform the public to do outreach, I think is really critical, because this is a new program, and there will be people who will not be happy.
True enough.
My IRWA just got a $60,000 bill. Significant amount of money considering it's free water district.
Yeah.
Yeah, I to highlight or to respond. So we did issue the handbills associated with public water systems a couple of weeks ago. And so that is the bill that Chair McNerlin is referring, or Director McNerlin is referring to. Just as maybe a anticipation of call volume of the water districts, public water systems we sent invoices to, which is only 8. or so, 8 to 10. We've received calls from about half of them with questions around the bill, and that's on the handbills that have much more information associated with them and included on the handbill than we're able to include on the property tax bills.
Well, the IRWA handbill only listed the gallons and the price per gallon, and it didn't even separate the different water districts. So IRWA doesn't really have a budget. The only budget we have is to pay for being here, right? In the future, I'm sure you got a call from Jared, but it needs to be broken down by water district because they're all independent districts, even though they belong to IRWA. It's just an agreement to belong to IRWA.
Odd that the way that they did it.
Yeah, it was just one lump sum. How do you break it down between Redwood Valley and Millview and, right? So you don't get that call again. Just, those need to be broken down by water district.
Thank you for that feedback. We'll make sure that's incorporated.
Dr. Crane.
I recently received a request for information from one of the people that was billed from the Santa Rosa office, West Yost. I called Harry. He explained to me what had transpired. At that time, we spoke of it might be handy for members of this body to know who had received that series of bills. It seems to fit in this discussion.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect segue, Doug. I was not dodging that request. I sent you an email this morning. I think we have a better tool to navigate those kind of questions, and it's a perfect segue for what Indigo is going to launch into if we're ready to move to that.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. So since there were some questions about what the website looks like, I just wanted to bring up what the fee page looks like. So this is, you certainly, if you're talking with constituents, can direct them to this as a resource. There's all the background, all of the documents associated with your passage of the fee. There's information on appealing the groundwater sustainability fee, and then a whole slew of frequently asked questions for folks to gain more information about the history and passage of this fee. But what I wanted to direct your attention to today is the newest addition to this webpage, which is this Groundwater Sustainability Fee Finder web map. And so this was just updated yesterday or this morning. And so this is a resource that the Hansford Consulting team has developed. There's some instructions here on this homepage of how to utilize this map. But the great thing about this map is that it will allow any member of the public to see what their fee is on a parcel by parcel basis. And it also allows anyone that's talking with members of the public to be able to look at a parcel and look at the assessment. So for instance, if I just zoom in onto a parcel, I can click on any given parcel. It'll give me their APN. It'll break down their fee calculations by their Part 1 fee, that's the base fee, and then their Part 2 fee, which is the grouped fee, and then show the total fees charged. It will also indicate if this parcel was billed on a property tax bill or whether it was a hand-billed parcel, and identify the fee group of this parcel, which you could then cross-reference with the methodology that's in the fee study. It also allows folks to look up their property by either the address or APN, whatever is most comfortable and easy for them. So I'm very excited about this tool. It's something we have a similar version in the Sonoma County GSAs, and I have found it immensely helpful in my communications with stakeholders and for stakeholders to utilize in their own way. It gives them, I would say, a certain level of independence with the understanding of what does a fee look like for them and for their lives. I will say this does not include information around those public water system fees, which is what we just released, so it would not respond directly to the call that Director Crane received. We can definitely share that list. There is only so far 8 to 10 public water systems. So it's the 8 to 10 public water systems, Regina, Irwa, City of Ukiah, along with a couple of others like City of 10,000 Buddhas that have received bills at this point. And we could share that list with you if you would like. It's also included in the fee study, all of those all of those groups that would, those public water systems that receive those bills. So happy to take questions on this or share this, but definitely would encourage you all to look at this in your own independent time as well.
Okay, questions from board members?
Can we assume that we can allocate, just want to make sure we understand who's available to receive calls if we exceed our threshold on a weekly basis?
And I would say to specify those calls over the next couple of weeks. So I know it's harvest. I know that's a hard time for our agricultural board members, but if there are others that have availability besides Chair McGordy.
Can you remind me why Regina was excluded?
They're not excluded. The well, as a water system, they are not excluded from our fee study. This is just the donut hole in the basin that was identified by DWR when they mapped the basin. It largely has to do with the underlying geology and that kind of hill slope within the valley that they're on.
Okay, anybody else want to volunteer to assist on calls? No.
I am not a paid.
No, I don't want to make anybody do something they don't want, and at this point it can just
elected.
At this point it can just be me unless I'm overwhelmed.
I mean, I'll volunteer, especially for like the ag ones. I mean, we have done a lot of outreach, so hopefully there's not that many, but there will be some.
Okay. Okay, and Director Crane and so there's three of us then. Adam, myself, and Doug are willing to do this if we start running over 5 people per week, which I think we will. So.
Okay, we'll start pitching to you guys when we get beyond our described capacity.
I really like that map. That's really cool where you can click on the parcel, and that's nifty.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you guys like it. The Hansford team did a great job with it. And I guess I would highlight that would be updated on an annual basis to match that year's assessments and adjust for any corrections that were made.
Okay. And we have a procedure for corrections? Is that something that...
There is a procedure for an appeals that come through. So there's, as I kind of highlighted on that website, there's a whole section on the webpage on fee appeals, and there's a fee appeal form to fill out for any landowners that think they are should receive an appeal.
Okay.
May I have one little piece of input? So I just looking at the front page of when we go to the fee background and everything. I think it really needs to state this is a state mandated, state unfunded mandate. This is a state unfunded mandate, and I don't see that in the top few paragraphs.
It belongs there.
And it does belong there, absolutely 100%.
Yeah, I think it's really important to convey that this isn't something we dreamt up.
Yeah, we just didn't pull this out of our booties, right? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's great feedback. Thank you. We can, if anyone has any specific language they want us to include, we're happy to receive that, or we will just develop a sentence and add it ourselves.
And in our discussions, I don't think we have to put this on the website necessarily, but in our discussions, we should say we're taking this on locally, because if we don't, the state would step in and probably charge us much more. Because that's, Harry, I don't know if you're following these GSA wars in the Central Valley, and I guess the state has stepped in some places and taken over. Is that correct?
That is correct. And what's interesting about it too is, in some cases, the fees that are being the per well fee and the per acre foot fee, people are actually looking at that and thinking, wow, this might be a cheaper way to go, is to have state intervention, but it really is just the tip of the iceberg. And the state does not want to be in the business of doing this. They really want to help people get out of probation status and get back into self-governance. I don't think Sigma can envision a world where the long-term management at this point is done by a state agency. I just think that is way too unwieldy, and the basins are across the state are far too complicated for them to be able to do. So,
and maybe Harry, to further elaborate on your point of like, maybe the state option is cheaper. In all of those cases, one of the state's mandates is that the basin is self-funded. And so the state fees are on top of any local GSA fees. So
Right.
it is always a more expensive proposition to have the state involved than it would be otherwise.
yeah, good point, Indigo. Those are new fees. They aren't fees that retire the GSA fees.
Yeah, let's just make sure that's right at the top there, that unfunded, state mandated.
And add to that, underneath it in somewhat smaller type, is if you don't like this, call the governor's office and give the phone number.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll make sure and have that footnote. And
Yeah.
do you want us to also include the comment about where we pulled these numbers out of? So there's something about that, Teresa?
Right. No, I said we did not pull them out of. Yeah, no, give them our state legislative phone numbers as well, right?
Yeah,
State
do
senator.
that,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, trying
Well,
to
at least the clown who signed it.
trying to avoid making this a political discussion. Thanks, Doug. Harry, in your experience, what are other GSAs saying with regard to this declaration that we're considering adding to our website? Is this a common thing?
I haven't seen it, and I'm not here to debate the unfunded mandate aspect of this. In fairness to that criticism, we are getting $1.4 million to do a study. We did receive a significant grant for the startup costs of the GSA. So maybe a fairer characterization is partially funded. I don't know.
Well, I think to your point, let's just be cautious about making declarations that may jeopardize future funding.
I'm with you 100%, Chris. I don't want us to put a bullseye on ourselves, we'll try to reflect the wishes of the board and do it in a politically tolerable way. How's that?
Maybe in my experience, generally, that's captured by just providing a sentence about the history of Sigma being established in 2014, which established a requirement of local agencies.
Hey, Dominic,
Without,
I'd see we have a hand up from Dominic. We haven't heard from Dominic.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I was just going to say, when we review grant applications at the state, we do not consider your First Amendment speech. So, I just want to be clear that whatever you choose to say is not going to have any effect on your grant application one way or the other. We have really strict criteria that we've made before we've even solicited any grant applications, and then we only look at that criteria.
Well, and I just want us to be professional. I think that Chris is wise in what he says, that we don't want to come across as being, particularly political, but I think it's fair to share with everyone that this is something we dreamt up. This is a state mandate that requires local participation, something to that effect.
That's wiser than first.
I think it's fair to describe why this is happening. I can give the history, and certainly people can draw their own, social conclusions about it.
Okay. All right, well, we need to keep moving on so we can finish up our meeting, so I'd entertain a motion to accept this plan.
So move.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director McNairland,
Aye.
Director Watt,
Yes.
Vice Chair Crane,
Aye.
Chair McGorty.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Good. Next, we're on to consent items. Are there any questions on items on the consent agenda?
Indigo, you might want to go on mute, Indigo.
Oh, thank you all for having me here and presenting.
Okay. Is there any public comment on consent items, either online or in the room? I don't see any, so I think we can call for a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Can I ask a question real quick on the consent? It
Sure.
says DWR Facilitation Support Services application and FSS ad hoc committee formation. So we're forming an ad hoc committee right now?
Harry?
If
Harry, you're muted.
we're forming a committee, we need
Yeah.
to say who those members are right now. Right?
Is your question just about the committee, Teresa, or the?
We're forming that committee with this vote right now?
I think it's in the agenda item.
I see it's on the, is that,
Let me
Go to the
see.
staff report.
Let me look at the staff report. That would be.
It'd be Chris and I from this board.
okay. I just missed that. All right.
I'm sorry, did the question get answered?
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
it's
So
Chris and I,
we're
and then-
so the chair's appointing Director Gasca and Director Watt, and then we're just confirming it with a vote as a consent item, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I think we're ready to call the question.
Director Gasca,
Aye.
Director McNairland,
Aye.
Director Watt,
Yes.
Vice Chair Crane,
Aye.
Chair McGorty.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, now we're on to staff and GSA partner updates. Update from the general manager.
So the executive order that required the GSA to weigh in on well permitting, because we are out of the drought, is not required at this point, but knowing California, there's another drought right around the corner. So I wouldn't be surprised if we transition into a dry year that gets reestablished. But at the moment, we're not being recruited into any kind of declaration as it relates to new well permits. And we were only had one on the horizon, and I believe that was the Gobi well. Any questions on that?
No, but just a comment that the county is looking at updating their requirements for wells, and we should see an amendment to the zoning or permitting requirements for that very shortly.
Right.
Just to make sure I'm remembering this right. So the executive order required the GSA to make certain findings with respect to certain well permit applications, and because that order is rescinded, we no longer have to make those findings.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And furthermore, it would, some of the things that we were being asked to do, quite frankly, were nearly impossible just because of the modeling and the technical information to evaluate that. And so, I mean, in some respects, it's a sigh of relief, but I don't want to create the illusion that this is going to go away, because as soon as we transition back into another drought, I fully expect that EO to be reestablished.
Okay. And item 2 on that is status on update on wells installed with telemetry.
So Sarah from our team has been working on this, and Sarah, are you prepared to just provide a quick update on this?
I sure am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good morning, almost afternoon, everyone. My name's Sarah. Quick update on telemetry. I've been working a lot with Audra and the Mendocino County RCD on installing telemetry and sensors at 5 sites throughout the Ukiah Valley Basin. We have had 2 successes, which is really great because it can take a little while to get landowner access, but all those agreements have been granted and the wells have been installed. And these are key monitoring points within the basin. We have determined that City of Ukiah well is already instrumented with telemetry, so we're going to work with City of Ukiah on getting access to that data. There are 2 DWR monitoring sites. One of them, we have not heard anything from the landowner, and one of them we're working with RCD to get a site that is near the previously instrumented well, because the landowner did not want to share access to the GSA and had previously been giving access to DWR. So we are making progress, and that's my update. Happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Questions, board members? Okay. All right, well, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Or anything else?
Nope. Yeah, that concludes my report, Glenn.
Okay. No legal counsel here today, so we don't have to worry about that. Are there any updates from Department of Water Resources and State Water Resource Control Board representatives who are on the call?
Yeah. So first off with the wells, just to be clear, that one well, unfortunately, that we don't have access to it anymore, so we won't be updating that data, but there still will be a historical record. So hopefully that nearby well can match up to that. And then also some of our geologists are going to go out and measure our TSS wells that we installed in the Ukiah area. And I think they'll be doing that in a year term on a continuous basis. And then we have a stream gauge improvement program, which is like a $7 million funding program to improve California's stream gauge network. The first deadline was September 30th, but there'll be monthly deadlines at the end of every month through the end of December. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll send you more info in an email after this. We released, oh, actually, sorry, I missed one thing on my list. So there was a talk about it already, but we received an application for FSS, which is Facilitation Support Services. So that is undergoing review right now, and I believe it'll be done shortly. Yeah, okay, so we also released our interconnected surface water papers 2 and 3. And so those currently have a 45-day public comment period on them. So anyone from the public, from agencies, they're all encouraged to respond and provide their feedback on those papers. And then we have the 10-year anniversary for Sigma is on November 18th. And so again, the public and everyone is invited to attend that event. It'll be hybrid. I think in person, if people want to come to that, that's, I think, just board members, but there'll be an online streaming of it. And then there's a new PMA module. So when you're providing your annual report information in the future, there'll also be a spot to provide updates on your projects and management actions on our portal. That data has already been pre-populated to try to reduce costs to GSAs. So really, all that should be needed is to ensure that what was entered by DWR staff is consistent with the direction that the GSAs continue to take, and then to provide any project updates if there are any. And then we have INSAR subsidence data available through July 1st of this year now in our open data portal. And lastly, I believe Ukiah has actually already taken advantage of this, but we do have verbal interpretation services. So if you would like interpretation services at any public meetings, that's something that we can assist with. So I'll provide an email later this afternoon with all this information in more detail. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. All right. So any updates from GSA partners? Laurel?
Well, I gave you my Bureau of Reclamation grant update, unless you want more information or you have questions. We also finished up the Department of Conservation Watershed Coordinator grant that produced a pretty significant amount of study related to where recharge sites would work best in the valley. You guys have all seen that. Revegetation of streams, high priority streams, fire fuel load reductions. And we did a very specific analysis of what happens when the PVP water stops flowing down the river and the number of agricultural storage ponds that would be needed, where they're needed, who has storage, who has what water rights, who has a flood control contract, so that the individual growers can take on the job of building a storage pond if they need to and updating their contracts. And then the final piece of that report was about urban runoff and the water quality effects it can have and some suggestions for projects. So I can, I've sent pieces of this before. I can send the whole thing if you guys are interested and want to look through it. It has a lot of maps, a lot of analysis, plans, all that kind of stuff in it.
Yeah, I would like to see that again, and it would be interesting also for you at some point to schedule a meeting, a presentation with the Mendocino Inland Water Power Commission.
You're kind of going in and out of, I can't like.
You can't hear me?
Well, I heard the beginning and then you went away.
Yeah, so please send it to board members, and it would be good to have a presentation for that with the Mendocino Inland Water Power Commission.
Sure.
Okay. Doug?
I wanted
Can
to
I just
ask,
send it to Harry and he sends it out? Because
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if
good.
I have everybody's emails.
Yeah, that's fine.
I wanted to ask if that is online.
No, not right now, no.
Will it be?
Yeah, it could be on our Fish Friendly Farming site, or if you want to put it on the GSA site.
If it extends beyond this GSA,
Yeah, it does.
then it probably makes more sense for it to be on the site where the work is being done and the people are responsible for the information on that site. But if that was the case, then instead of each of us receiving those files, if we knew where to go, if we had the URL to get to those, if it's not up, then receiving it would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Right now it is not posted anyplace, but maybe Harry could look at it and decide if he wants to put it on the GSA site.
Okay. Thank you, Laurel. Is there anybody else in terms of our partners who has something to say? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to future agenda items. Harry, when is our next meeting scheduled?
Should know that, I don't. Laura, or Sarah, when is our next meeting? December? You there, Sarah?
Yep, sorry, I'm just pulling up my cal. Our next meeting, I believe is Thursday, December 12th. Or wait, sorry. Thursday, December 9th.
Yeah, I have this January 9th, and then I have April 10th. Are those wrong?
Our website says something.
Sorry, we need to cross-check this.
I have it as Tuesday, December 10th. But that may have been a holdover from a prior calendar.
Yeah, right now it's Thursday, January 9th is our next one, 2025. From 10 a.m. to 12.
So one of the things that before then we'll have to work out a transition plan most likely to replace me as the county representative. So.
And FYI, the IRWA is making progress on consolidating with the city of Ukiah. So hopefully we can dissolve IRWA within the next 6 months or year or so. And then you have a whole new board, the Ukiah Valley Water Association.
Authority.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are they expected to have a representative on this body?
I don't know. That will all have to be worked out.
Right, because the JPA is specific to IRWA.
Right. But
IRWA
IRWA
goes
will,
away, then.
right, and the whole point of IRWA was to move towards consolidation, right? Not have all these separate districts. So hopefully we can do that, get a bunch of money from the state and dissolve IRWA.
So it sounds like at the January meeting there'll have to be some discussion about, appointing new people to serve.
Yep. Yeah, I think Glenn, what we can do is just convene the meeting. First agenda item will be to appoint a chair and a vice chair. And we can entertain motions from the board to do that and then proceed with business at that point.
Okay. Another agenda item that I personally would also like to see is that they're taking a look at updating the consumptive use of agricultural products here in crops in Mendocino County, because we have the study that I did with a group of other UC scientists in 2007, and I think it's out of date. And as we start going forward with our GSA, we need to have a really good idea of what consumptive use is in the valley. And it's quite possible that we would have Laura Garza from UC Cooperative Extension involved in that work if we decide to take it on. Because UC was the one who generated it the last time for the Mendocino County Water Agency.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, Laura, do you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, hi, this is Laura Garza from UC Cooperative Extension. Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, Glenn. We've discussed about updating the consumptive use of agriculture water use here in the valley. I've talked with Chris Chen, our viticulture advisor, and we'll be working on drafting a proposal and probably sharing with you on next year, with the GSA next year, some of our ideas on how we can update that study. So yeah, I'll keep you updated on that, but happy to discuss further.
Right, and a retired UC Cooperative Extension water specialist from San Luis Obispo County, Mark Batney, has also expressed interest in participating on that, and he worked with us quite a bit on our first study. Well, actually, the second one in Anderson Valley on ways to assess water use that's accurate. So that's something that long term that would really benefit the GSA, is to have a good handle on what agriculture is actually using. In our study in 2007, we went through and developed shapefiles for all the irrigated agriculture parcels, so we knew exactly where they were, which I think again, in fairness to charging people for groundwater use, if we have a well inventory and we know where their cropland is and when we have a sense of how much water they use, but we can be very accurately assessing them, which I think is something that's essential. At the moment, we have a system that works, but it's probably not as fair as it could be. Anybody else have anything they want to see on agenda items? All right, well, with that in mind, I think we're done. Harry, is there anything for the good of the order?
I think we're good. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Appreciate the feedback and input. We'll look forward to seeing the board in January and communicating with those that'll help with the outreach plan in the interim.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.